Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Wicked in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called Wicked. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which OTT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline, star cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. Wicked is a 2024 American musical fantasy film directed by John M. Chu and written by Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox. It adapts the first act of the 2003 stage musical by Stephen Schwartz and Holzman, which was loosely based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, itself a reimagining of L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and its 1939 MGM film adaptation. The film stars Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba Throp and Ariana Grande B as Glinda Upland, with Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, Bowen Yang, Marissa Bode, Peter Dinklage, Michelle Yeoh, and Jeff Goldblum in supporting roles. Set in the land of Oz prior to the events of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, it follows the early stages of the relationship between Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her dormitory roommate Galinda, who becomes Glinda the Good. Universal Pictures and Mark Platt, who both produced the stage musical, announced the adaptation in 2012. After a long development and multiple delays, partly due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Chu was hired to direct with Erivo and Grande cast in 2021. The adaptation was split into two parts to avoid omitting plot points and further develop the characters. Principal photography began in England in December 2022, was interrupted in July 2023 by the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, and resumed and concluded in January 2024. Wicked premiered at the State Theatre in Sydney, Australia on November 3, 2024, and was theatrically released in the United States on November 22nd. It received positive reviews, became a pop culture phenomenon, was named one of the best films of 2024 by the American Film Institute, and won Best Film at the National Board of Review. Among other accolades, it received 10 nominations at the 97th Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and won Best Costume Design and Best Production Design. It grossed $756.2 million worldwide on a $150 million budget, becoming the highest-grossing Oz film, the highest-grossing musical film adaptation, and the fifth highest-grossing film of 2024. Since its release, the film has been included in lists of the best musical and fantasy films of the 21st century. A sequel, Wicked for Good, is scheduled for release on November 21st, 2025. Plot: in the land of Oz, Glinda the Good joins the citizens of Munchkinland as they celebrate the death of the Wicked Witch of the West at the hands of a female child. When a child asks her why wickedness happens, Glinda ponders the question by discussing the witch's backstory. Born from an affair between the wife of then-Governor Throp and a traveling salesman, she was ostracized from birth due to her unnaturally green skin and impulsive telekinetic powers. No one mourns the wicked. When asked if she and the witch were friends, Glinda reveals that they knew each other from school. Years earlier, Elphaba Throp arrives at Shiz University to see off her wheelchair-using younger sister, Nessa Rose, dear old Shiz. After witnessing an accidental release of Elphaba's powers, Madame Morrible, Shiz's Dean of Sorcery Studies, offers to enroll Elphaba and privately tutor her in sorcery. Elphaba accepts in the hopes that it will allow her to accomplish her dream of working with Oz's ruler, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the Wizard and I. To her discontent, she is forced to room with the bubbly Galinda Upland. The two clash constantly. What is this feeling? One night, Elphaba follows the history professor Dr. Dillamond, an anthropomorphic goat who faces discrimination as one of Shiz's last animal professors, to a meeting of animals off campus. Dillamond reveals that other animals are losing their ability to speak, but Elphaba assures him the wizard will set things right, something bad. Rebellious transfer student Fiyero Tigalar takes a group of students to a party at the Ozdust Ballroom nightclub, dancing through life. Galinda convinces her admirer Bach Woodsman, a happy-go-lucky munchkin, to invite Nessarose so she can accompany Fiyero. Moved by this, Elphaba lobbies a begrudging Morrible to tutor Galinda. Elphaba arrives at the Ozdust and is ridiculed for wearing a pointed hat that Galinda gave her as a joke. A remorseful Galinda dances with her Ozdust duet, and the two later bond popular. Dillamond announces that animals are no longer allowed to teach at Shiz and is forcibly removed from his classroom. His replacement, the unscrupulous Professor Nikidik, demonstrates a new contraption, a cage with a frightened lion cub enclosed within, designed to prevent animals from learning to speak. An enraged Elphaba releases her powers and spins poppy dust over the room, putting everyone except herself and Fiyero to sleep. They escape campus and release the cub into the forest. After sharing a moment, Elphaba reflects her unrequited love for Fiyero and laments that Fiyero prefers Galinda to her. "I'm not that girl." Elphaba receives an invitation to meet the wizard, who has learned of her magic from Morrible. Galinda, now calling herself Dillamond's mispronunciation of her name Glinda in solidarity with him, accompanies her. They arrive in the Emerald City, one short day, and are introduced to the wizard, who is revealed to be an ordinary man, a sentimental man. Morrible arrives to witness Elphaba and the wizard's meeting, and the two encourage Elphaba to cast a spell from the sacred Grimoire spellbook. She casts a levitation spell that makes the wizard's monkey guards painfully sprout wings. Overhearing the elated wizard and Morrible's intention to use them as spies, Elphaba realizes that they are the ones behind the oppression of animals and that the fraudulent wizard intended to use her. Horrified, Elphaba steals the Grimoire and flees. Glinda follows Elphaba and implores her to reconcile with Morrible and the wizard, but Elphaba chooses to rebel. She bids an emotional farewell to Glinda, who supports her but declines to accompany her before being apprehended by guards. Elphaba repeats the levitation spell on a broom and dramatically escapes the Emerald City. As Morrible propagandizes against Elphaba, Fiyero leaves Shiz on horseback amidst a mass evacuation while Governor Throp suffers a heart attack after he and Nessarose receive the news. Elphaba flies west, leaving Glinda behind, defying gravity. Production. Development. In the 1990s, Universal Pictures Executive Vice President and head of the motion picture group Joseph M. Singer acquired the manuscript from Demi Moore's Moving Pictures for $1 million to the 1995 Gregory Maguire novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, a revisionist exploration of the characters and setting of L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Linda Wolverton was hired by Singer to write the screenplay. Moore, Whoopi Goldberg, Nicole Kidman, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Emma Thompson were considered for the roles of Glinda and Elphaba, with Robert Zemeckis considered for director. By 1998, however, composer Stephen Schwartz successfully persuaded Universal and producer Mark Platt to make it a musical and adapt it for the stage instead, with Winnie Holzman joining in as librettist and David Stone as co-producer. In 2003, the stage musical, now simply titled Wicked, opened on Broadway at the Gershwin Theater, produced by Universal's Stage Division and directed by Joe Mantello, with musical staging by Wayne Cilento. The Broadway production has inspired long-run productions in Chicago, London, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, as well as Germany, Australia, and Japan. It was nominated for 10 Tony Awards, winning 3, and is the fourth longest-running Broadway show in history, with over 7,500 performances running for over 20 years. The original Broadway production starred Idina Menzel as Elphaba and Kristen Chenoweth as Glinda. In a 2009 interview, Maguire stated that he had sold the rights to ABC to make an independent non-musical TV adaptation of Wicked. It would not be based on Holzman's script. On January 9, 2011, it was reported by Entertainment Weekly that ABC would be teaming up with Salma Hayek and her production company to create a TV miniseries of Wicked based solely on Maguire's novel. No further information, such as casting, had been revealed yet. Chenoweth, Menzel, Leah Michele, and Amy Adams were all rumored to be potential leads. Holzman and Schwartz were rumored as potential writers, and J.J. Abrams, Rob Marshall, James Mangold, and Ryan Murphy were all mentioned as possible candidates for director. In December 2012, following the success of Les Miserables, Platt announced that the film was going ahead, later confirming the film was aiming for a 2016 release. After a long development, Universal announced in 2016 that the film would be released in theaters on December 20, 2019, with Stephen Daldry directing. Daldry was reported considering Lady Gaga and Shawn Mendes for the roles of Elphaba and Fiyero. By 2024, Holzman was credited as the sole writer. In August 2024, it was determined by the Writers Guild of America that Dana Fox collaborated with Holzman on the screenplay, and that Craig Mazin contributed additional literary material. Pre-production. In May 2017, Schwartz said the film would feature at least 2 new songs, 48. On August 31st, 2018, Universal put the film on hold due to production scheduling and gave the film adaptation of Cats the release date formerly held by Wicked. On February 8, 2019, Universal announced a new release date of December 22, 2021. On April 1, 2020, Universal put Wicked on hold again due to Universal shifting release dates amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and gave Sing 2 the 2021 release date. On October 20, 2020, it was announced that Daldry had left the production due to scheduling conflicts. On February 2, 2021, it was announced that John M. Chu would take over as director. Serving as executive producers would be Schwartz, Holzman, Fox, David Nixay, and Jared Leboff. In August, Alice Brooks was confirmed as the cinematographer after working with Chu on the film version of In the Heights. In November, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo were cast as Glinda and Elphaba. Grande initially auditioned for Elphaba due to Chu being miscommunicated that she expressed interest in that role over Glinda. Grande had previously recorded Popular Song, a remix of Popular from the musical, in 2012 and had performed The Wizard and I, a song from the musical, in the NBC special Wicked 15th anniversary. Erivo previously had performed I Couldn't Be Happier, an excerpt from the song Thank Goodness in the PBS special Wicked in Concert. It was reported that Grande auditioned 5 times for the role of Glinda. Dove Cameron, Taylor Louderman, Renee Rapp, and Amanda Seyfried were also reported to have auditioned for Glinda. Grande has revealed in later interviews and podcast appearances that she began taking acting and singing lessons around a year before her first Wicked audition, as she wanted to make sure she was perfect for the role and was seen for her acting ability rather than her singing persona. In June 2022, Chu confirmed the hiring of Nathan Crowley as production designer. On September 21, 2022, it was reported that Jonathan Bailey had joined the cast as Fiyero, beating, among others, actors Ryan McCartan, who played the role in 2018-2019 on Broadway, Cooper Coach, Nick Jonas, and Joe Jonas for the part. In October 2022, it was announced that Jeff Goldblum was in final talks to star as the Wizard. Goldblum completed talks by December, when Ethan Slater, Michelle Yeoh, Marissa Bode, Bowen Yang, Bronwyn James, Keala Settle, Aaron Teo, and Colin Michael Carmichael were added to the cast. In April 2024, it was revealed at CinemaCon that Peter Dinklage had been cast as the voice of Dr. Dillamond. On preparing for the role of Elphaba, Erivo told Variety, while expressing her desire to see the stage version on Broadway again before filming, "I'm relearning everything. I want to go and see it again. When I get to New York at some point, I'll pop in and see the show again. That'll be my 5th time." She also said at that time that discussions were underway on what the film will look like, particularly its production design and visual style, and confirmed the hiring of Paul Tazewell as costume designer. Her request to him for Elphaba's costume when she becomes the Wicked Witch of the West involved a Jean-Paul Gaultier collection with a New World kind of Gilded Age feeling. Erivo also contributed to several other parts of Elphaba's appearance, notably her hair and nails. "I knew I wanted Elphaba to have micro braids, and I wanted her to have a full set of nails for 2 reasons. They are a nod to my culture and a nod to the world of Oz. She also stated, I imagined that her nails were a part of her magic, that they just grew out of her and she hadn't yet discovered why, like her green skin. Like the stage musical, the script includes made-up words such as clandestinely, hideous, and confusifying, giving the land of Oz its own Ozian language. Filming. Principal photography was set to commence in June 2022 at the Sky Studios Elstree facilities in the United Kingdom. In July 2021, Schwartz indicated there were plans to film in Atlanta that year. On April 26, 2022, Chu announced the adaptation would be filmed in 2 parts, Wicked and Wicked Part 2, later renamed Wicked for Good, saying, as we prepared the production over the last year, it became impossible to wrestle the story of Wicked into a single film without doing some real damage to it. As we tried to cut songs or trim characters, those decisions began to feel like fatal compromises to the source material that has entertained us all for so many years. We decided to give ourselves a bigger canvas and make not just one Wicked movie, but 2. With more space, we can tell the story of Wicked as it was meant to be told while bringing even more depth and surprise to the journeys for these beloved characters. In June 2022, Schwartz confirmed that a new song would be written for one of the 2 films. We found it very difficult to get past Defying Gravity without a break. That song is written specifically to bring a curtain down, and whatever scene to follow it without a break just seemed hugely anticlimactic. Even as a very long single movie, it required us cutting or omitting things that we wanted to include and that we think fans of the show and the story will appreciate. What we have discussed is that changes need to be additive, to use producer Mark Platt's term. They need to add something to the story or the characters. They can't just be changes to do something different. I feel confident that by the time the movie is made, if we all continue to have the same degree of input, I could have a conversation with anyone who has a question about any of the changes made from the stage show and justify why I think it's better for the movie. On July 18th, it was revealed that with the filming process settled at the newly built Sky Studios Elstree in Boreham Wood, England, rehearsals would begin in August with principal photography beginning in November. On December 9th, Chu confirmed on Twitter that filming had begun. On September 23rd, planning statement in support of a planning application submitted on behalf of Western Sky Limited indicated that outdoor filming would occur at a site being developed at Ivinghoe Tur in Ivinghoe, Buckinghamshire, UK. Early into filming, paparazzi from the Daily Mail were seen flying over the Munchkinland set by hang glider with GoPro cameras attached to their feet as Ariana Grande and the cast and crew filmed No One Mourns the Wicked, the opening number of the first film. The first pictures of Grande in costume as Glinda were leaked online and sparked anticipation. Grande said in an interview for V-Man, I think we were very spoiled to have done this with Chu. It felt like a teeny little secret student thing. It's intimacy. It felt so small and private until all of a sudden we were outside and the Daily Mail was hand gliding over our set. Shooting was planned to take place between April 6th and July 14th, 2023, with principal photography set to wrap with the One Short Day sequence on July 25th. Filming was suspended from July 13th to November 8th due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. Filming resumed on January 24, 2024, and concluded on January 26, lasting 155 days in total. The song vocals were recorded live on set at the insistence of Erivo and Grande Academy Award-winning production sound mixer Simon Hayes, collaborated with Chu on the recordings of the actors' vocals, using a variation of the same recording techniques that were implemented on Les Miserables. Chu also cited Steven Spielberg's 1991 film Hook as inspiration for the large-scale sets and practical effects, including 9 million colorful tulips planted on location to surround the Munchkinland set, a paved yellow brick road with real mud, and a life-size Art Deco-inspired train to transport Elphaba and Glinda to the Emerald City, which he called the Unlimited One. Chu also cited the 1998 films Pleasantville and The Truman Show as influences on how both Wicked and Wicked for Good thematically portray the land of Oz, saying, "It helps create this idea of the rebelliousness that this new younger generation are discovering. How far will that take everybody in Oz throughout the course of the whole story of both movies? It's an awakening of a generation. You start to see the truth about things that maybe you were taught differently." The interior of the Wizard's Castle was inspired by Hans Pilzig's Großes Schauspielhaus. Although media sources described Wicked as a prequel to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's The Wizard of Oz, 1939, it legally could not be considered as such. The Wizard of Oz is under copyright protection by Warner Bros., who also owns the rights to elements such as the ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland, the swirling design of the yellow brick road in Munchkinland, and even the shade of green used for the Wicked Witch of the West's skin. While producing Wicked, Universal enlisted a copyright expert to ensure that any references to the Wizard of Oz didn't verge on infringement. The slippers eventually worn by Dorothy were changed from ruby to silver, as they were in L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, while Cynthia Erivo and SFX makeup artist David Stoneman developed a shade of green makeup, nicknamed Cynthia Green, after Erivo, that was subtly different from the one used on Margaret Hamilton in the 1939 film. Hamilton's chin mole couldn't be used as well. The expert also verified the designs of Munchkinland and the Emerald City, so they weren't too close in appearance to their counterparts in the 1939 film. Post-production and visual effects. On February 6, 2024, it was confirmed that Industrial Light and Magic and Framestore provided the visual effects, with Pablo Hellman serving as production visual effects supervisor, and that post-production work was in progress, with Chu working remotely with editor Myron Kirstein via communication through the newly released Apple Vision Pro. Throughout editing, Kirstein felt emotionally connected to the film and its story, particularly during post-production work on the Ozdust Ballroom and Defying Gravity sequences, while reflecting on the former scene. "We always felt like the Ozdust Ballroom was basically the set piece we had to get right, because if that didn't work, the rest of the movie was going to fall apart." The sequence involved watching the entireties of every 10-minute-long take of Elphaba and Glinda's dance duet and picking the right portions that provoked the most emotional response. Editing on the entire film was done through Avid Media Composer. Wicked has 2,200 visual effects shots. Team Aspect handled the film's main-on-end title sequence and motion design elements using 1930s era stylization in homage to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's The Wizard of Oz. This included a recreation of the 1937 Universal logo at the start of the film, along with on-screen typography for the title and to-be-continued cards similar to the font used in the MGM film. Post-production was completed on September 19, 2024. Music. The soundtrack album for Wicked was released by Republic Records' Verve label group, Grande and Erivo's record labels, on November 22, 2024. In July 2024, it was announced that John Powell had composed the incidental underscore and is set to do the same for Wicked for Good. Jeff Atmagian updated the late William David Brone's original orchestrations for the songs and enlarged the orchestra from the stage version's original 23 musicians to 125 for the film. The recording sessions for the music took place at Air Studios in London, with the musical's original music director, Stephen Oremus, conducting the song cues, and Powell conducting the incidental score cues alongside Gavin Greenaway, all with the London Symphony Orchestra. Greg Wells, Oremus, and Schwartz served as music producers. The score album was released on December 6, 2024. Some songs from Wicked for Good appear throughout the score, most prominently For Good, whenever Elphaba and Galinda's friendship is seen or mentioned, Thank Goodness, when Galinda changes her name, and Wonderful, when Elphaba receives her invitation from the wizard. A few days later, the production company released the sing-along playlist on the main digital platforms, while also scheduling this type of screening in cinemas around the world. In this format, viewers are encouraged to sing along live with lyrics added to the film as if it were a karaoke session. Changes from stage musical. New characters in the film include Dulcibert, Elphaba's childhood nanny, Miss Cottle, the headmistress at Shiz University, and Galinda's parents, who drop her off at Shiz. Miss Cottle assumes the headmistress role previously assumed by Madame Morrible in the stage musical, with Morrible now the Dean of Sorcery. Another unnamed character serves as the university's president. New scenes include Elphaba's tutoring sessions with Madame Morrible as she learns to control her powers, flashbacks to her childhood as she's ridiculed by the children of Munchkinland for her green skin, and moments showing her and Nessarose's dynamic as sisters. The sexual content of the novel and the musical, particularly the affair between Elphaba's mother and the traveling salesman, was toned down so both films could reach a wider audience and attain a PG rating from the Motion Picture Association, MPA. Fane, who was female in the novel and is cast as such in the musical, is portrayed here as male. Bach's full name is given as Bach Woodsman, and his character arc was expanded upon. Something Bad is changed from a conversation between Dr. Dillamond and Elphaba to a private meeting of the talking animals at Dillamond's off-campus residence, where they sing to each other about the state of Oz. Elphaba is already enrolled at Shiz alongside Nessarose in the musical. In the film, she is only there to accompany and watch over Nessarose at the request of their father, before Morrible enrolls Elphaba later on. Fiyero and Elphaba's first meeting happens in the forest following Something Bad, rather than with a group of classmates at Shiz. Dancing Through Life takes place on open grounds in the musical, while the film sets it inside the university's circular rotating library and includes an extended dance break. The Ozdust Ballroom is also reimagined as what Chu called a nightclub in the underbelly of Oz, complete with a musical band of animals. Popular is extended with additional key changes and vocal extensions. One Short Day is significantly extended to include the Emerald City Players production of Wizomania, which lays out more of the backstory for the wizard and the Grimmery. The leading players are Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, who starred in the original Broadway production of the stage musical as Elphaba and Glinda. The climactic shot of Defying Gravity, in which Elphaba sings her battle cry while up in the air, has her cape billow and enlarge to evoke the cherry picker effect from the musical, where a crane is used to lift the actress playing Elphaba off the stage. The sequence itself is also extended to work as the cliffhanger. Elphaba's battle cry, which normally ends the song, is followed by a score extension inspired by the sunrise portion of Richard Strauss's. Also Sprach Zarathustra, made famous by 2001: A Space Odyssey, at the suggestion of editor Myron Kirstein. Marketing. On April 16, 2023, first look pictures of Wicked were released through social media, featuring Erivo's Elphaba and Grande's Glinda. Work in process footage, featuring first listens to Grande and Erivo's renditions of Popular and Defying Gravity, was presented at CinemaCon on April 26, 2023, introduced on stage by Universal Pictures chairwoman Donna Langley. The first trailer for the film, in the form of a 60-second first look, premiered during Super Bowl XVIII on February 11, 2024. The film returned to CinemaCon on April 10, 2024 to present new footage and mark the first time the cast and crew appeared together in public to promote the film. Costumes and props were also on display in the lobby of the venue during this event. A featurette containing behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with Chu, Erivo, and Grande on how much the Wicked films mean to them as a passion project, debuted at NBC Universal's Upfront at Radio City Music Hall on May 13, 2024, and was released online shortly after. The 3-minute theatrical trailer was released on May 15, 2024, followed by a version produced and animated entirely in the Lego brick film style on May 29. The Lego version was later attached to theatrical screenings of the animated Pharrell Williams biopic Piece by Piece. A behind-the-scenes television special, Defying Gravity, The Curtain Rises on Wicked, aired on NBC on November 19, 2024, to promote the film 136. The network also hosted promotional tie-ins for the film throughout its coverage of the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, with Erivo, Grande, and Michelle Yeoh attending the opening ceremony, a viral video of the Emerald City's Unlimited One train cruising in front of the Eiffel Tower, and extensive advertising during primetime coverage of the women's gymnastics event, with Chu and the cast in attendance at the qualifying round. On September 4th, 2024, character posters were revealed ahead of the release of a new trailer the next day, which remixed Defying Gravity with Herbert Stothardt's iconic Wicked Witch Miss Gulch motif from Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's The Wizard of Oz 1939. After debuting in the Defying Gravity TV special, the entire What Is This Feeling musical number was uploaded to YouTube on November 22, 2024, coinciding with the film's release and amassing over 10 million views. Universal Products and Experiences released a wide range of Wicked merchandise, including toys, apparel, books, beauty products, and accessories. Vince Classew, president of Universal Products and Experiences, remarked, "It has been so fun to develop and expand the beloved story of Wicked and bring these incredible characters and worlds to life through magical products and immersive retail experiences. Our global merchandise program across retail and theme parks reflects the film's empowering themes and bold iconography, paving the way for even more excitement in 2025 with Wicked for Good." Wicked is very special to us, and we can't wait for fans to embrace these inspiring characters this holiday season. Universal had 450 promotional partners with a media value of $350 million, the most ever for a Hollywood theatrical film. On October 1st, Grand's cosmetics brand REM Beauty released a collaboration inspired by the film. A 96-page Wicked-focused special edition issue of People magazine featuring exclusive cast interviews and pictures from production was published on November 1st. On May 15, 2024, Universal launched an interactive website for Shiz University, allowing fans to apply for a 2024 semester at the college before August 15th. In September 2024, influencers on various social media platforms started sharing their acceptance letters and packages from Shiz, containing a personalized acceptance letter from Madame Morrible herself, a map of the campus, a newspaper reporting Prince Fiero spotted at Shiz, a pin, and a university jumper. Other fans who applied received their acceptance letters via email, with those applying late for the college being denied admission. On October 10th, 2024, it was announced that Wicked would launch the Journey Through Oz press tour during the weeks leading up to the film's release, with each city being transformed into some of the film's various locations: Sydney, Munchkinland, Los Angeles, Shiz University, Mexico City, Enchanted Forest, New York, Ozdas Ballroom, and London, Emerald City. On December 26, 2024, it was announced that Wicked would take part in the 2025 Rose Parade on January 1, 2025 in Pasadena, California, with a 55-foot-long Defying Gravity float covered with 60,000 tulips imported from Holland, along with colorful carnations to celebrate the film's New Year's Eve release on VOD. To promote the film's streaming release on Peacock, Universal sold its most Pay-One movie ad spots ever with 16 brand partners, including its own Universal Orlando Resort and parent company Comcast, as well as Adobe, Airbnb, Audible, Lexus, Princess Cruises, Rocket Mortgage, State Farm, Target, T-Mobile US, TurboTax, and Wayfair. Poster controversy. On October 9th, 2024, to coincide with tickets going on sale, a poster was released with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande in character recreating the original poster art of the stage musical. Reception towards the poster was mixed, resulting in the creation of fan edits designed to bring the poster closer to the original art, using Adobe Photoshop and generative AI tools. The poster was also mocked with a video made with Runway AI to make it look like Elphaba and Glinda in the image were fighting. It also became the subject of viral internet memes, including a parody replacing Elphaba with Charlie XCX in a promotional image for her and Grande's remix of Sympathy is a Knife. On October 15, 2024, a Twitter user created their own edit, attempting to more accurately match the poster to the original artwork by obscuring Elphaba's eyes, raising Glinda's hand to cover her mouth and giving Elphaba smirking red lips. Although many fans considered it an improvement, Erivo took to Instagram the following day and reposted the edit with the following: "This is the wildest, most offensive thing I have seen, equal to that awful AI of us fighting, equal to people posing the question, is Yursi green?" A reference to a 2014 meme. "None of this is funny. None of it is cute. It degrades me. It degrades us. The original poster is an illustration. I am a real-life human being who chose to look right down the barrel of the camera to you, the viewer, because without words, we communicate with our eyes. Our poster is an homage, not an imitation. To edit my face and hide my eyes is to erase me, and that is just deeply hurtful." The user later deleted the post out of respect for the actress, saying their intentions were not malicious and they had not anticipated the reaction. However, on October 20th, the user reposted their edit, saying while they felt Erivo's feelings were valid, they stood by the image as an innocent fan edit to pay homage to the original Broadway poster. On October 19th, during the 4th Academy Museum Gala red carpet arrivals, Grande responded to the controversy, saying, "I think it's very complicated because I find AI so conflicting and troublesome sometimes, but I think it's just kind of such a massive adjustment period. This is something that is so much bigger than us, and the fans are going to have fun and make their edits. And I have so much respect for my sister Cynthia, and I love her so much." On October 29th, Erivo was asked by Entertainment Tonight about the nature of her comments and said, "It wasn't necessarily a clapback, because I think I'm really protective of the role. I am passionate about it, and I know that the fans are passionate about it. And I think for me, it was just like a human moment of wanting to protect little Elphaba. It was a human moment. I probably should have called my friends, but it's fine." Mattel dolls. Mattel produced a series of dolls portraying Glinda, Elphaba, Fiero, Madame Morrible, as well as Nessarose in a wheelchair. In August 2024, 2 song snippets from the film, Popular and Defying Gravity, were leaked through a sound chip in their line of singing dolls. In November 2024, the doll box and the manual for many dolls in the Wicked line were found to contain links to the website of the adult film studio Wicked Pictures instead of the movie's own website. Mattel apologized for the error and asked parents who had bought products with the incorrect website to destroy the packaging. In December 2024, Mattel was sued by a mother in North Carolina, citing the emotional distress that she and her daughter had suffered due to the error. Release, originally announced as one film, Wicked was split into 2 films in April 2022. The first half premiered in Sydney, Australia at the State Theatre on November 3rd, 2024, with premieres that followed in Los Angeles at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion on November 9th, 2024, in Mexico City at the Auditorio Nacional on November 11th, 2024, and in London at the Royal Festival Hall on November 18th, 2024. It was theatrically released by Universal Pictures on November 21st in Australia and Mexico, and on November 22nd in the United States, with engagements in Real D3D, IMAX, Dolby Cinema, 4DX, ScreenX, and D-Box. This was followed by its Polish premiere as the closing night film of the 32nd International Film Festival of the Art of Cinematography, Cameramage, on November 23, 2024, with cinematographer Alice Brooks and production designer Nathan Crowley, who received the 2024 Production Designer Award at the festival, in attendance. Advanced screenings took place on November 18, 2024, for Amazon Prime members and for the general public on November 20, 2024. These 2 screenings mark the only times during the film's theatrical release that most theaters across the United States were simultaneously able to show the film in IMAX, due to Gladiator II taking over most of those screens on opening weekend. A sing-along version of the film was released theatrically on December 25, 2024. Wicked was previously scheduled for release on December 20, 2019, December 22, 2021, December 25, 2024, and November 27, 2024, with the latter release date to avoid competition with Avatar, Fire and Ash, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the former of which was later delayed to 2025 after Thunderbolts and later Mufasa the Lion King took its date, before moving forward by 5 days to its current date to avoid competition with Moana 2, with the new date putting it against Gladiator 2. This sparked speculation on whether the film and Gladiator 2 sharing a release date could result in a scenario later termed Glicked, similar to the Barbenheimer phenomenon, which was a result of Barbie and Oppenheimer both being released on July 21, 2023. With the film being released 2 weeks after the 2024 United States presidential election, Mark Platt reflected on the story's increasing relevance in the current political climate, saying, "It's a significant election for both of us, but our story aspires to be about the distance people travel to connect with each other, about seeing the other as not the other, about living in a world where sometimes the truth is not real." Wicked was screened exclusively for influencers, award-season pundits, and entertainment industry personnel on the Universal Studios lot on October 16, 2024. A private screening was held at the home of Kim Kardashian on October 22, 2024, exclusively attended by her family alongside Erivo and Grande 97. Another private screening took place at the DGA Theater in Manhattan on October 28, 2024, attended by Erivo, Grande, Chu, Platt, Schwartz, original Broadway cast members Kristen Chenoweth, Norbert Leo Butz, and Christopher Fitzgerald, members of the current Broadway cast, and other actresses who had played Elphaba and Glinda on Broadway and national tour over the years. The screening was preceded by a video greeting from Idina Menzel, who could not attend due to rehearsals being underway for the new musical Redwood. A screening hosted by Anna Wintour was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on November 14, 2024, attended by the cast members of the film and other celebrities. Screenings for the general public took place at the State Theatre in Sydney from November 20th through November 22nd. The film was re-released in 100 North American theaters on June 4th, 2025, with screenings accompanied by the Fan First trailer premiere for Wicked for Good. Censorship. Prior to its theatrical release in Kuwait, Wicked was pulled from some theaters due to public ethics. However, the film continues to be screened in various cinemas in the country. Following its release in the United States, right-wing conservative Christian group 1 Million Moms called for a boycott on the film, claiming that it promotes witchcraft and pushes the LGBTQ agenda on families, particularly children. Kristen Chenoweth defended the film in a comment on Instagram, saying, "Everyone knows the 1 Million Moms are a mere few hundred. Maybe. It's called entertainment. Artistry. I am a Christian woman, originated the role of Glinda and all the silliness that these women spew out of hate. No, I can't help it. I try to love them anyways, for they don't get it. For anyone who wants to see girl power, then go so wicked, on stage or in a movie theater." Localization. Wicked was dubbed in several countries where local productions of the original musical were staged. Many of these dubs saw actresses reprise their roles as Elphaba and Glinda after previously portraying them on stage, including Dana Paola and Ceci de la Cueva in Latin American Spanish, Mayra Ruiz and Fabi Bang in Brazilian Portuguese, 2/8, and Park Hae-na and Jong Suna in Korean. In the German dub, Elphaba was voiced by Sabrina Weckerlin, who was an alternate for the character in the original 2007 production. Johanna Milland, the voice of Glinda in Danish, portrayed the character in the 2024 production. Dutch actress Vijen van den Bosch, who portrayed Elphaba in the German production in 2021, instead returned as Glinda in the Dutch dub. Additionally, certain local performers were brought in to dub Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth's cameos. Willemijn Verkijk, who first played Elphaba in the original 2007 German production, and again in several international engagements, including the original 2011 Dutch production, as well as the West End and Broadway in 2013, dubbed over Menzel in the Dutch and German versions, together with Chenoweth's dubbers, and original Glinda actresses Chantal Jansen and Lucy Shearer. Maria Lucia Rosenberg, who portrayed Elphaba in the original 2011 Danish production, returned to dub Menzel in Danish. Other dubs of the film, particularly in countries where the musical hadn't premiered, saw Menzel dubbed over by actresses who'd previously voiced another character she originated, Elsa from Disney's Frozen. Such instances included Elke Biel in Flemish, Nicolette Furedy in Hungarian, Terence Spillman in Brazilian Portuguese, and Annika Hurlitz in Swedish. In Norway, Wicked was released without the musical ever being staged there. 2 days before the film's release, a first-time Norwegian production of the musical was announced and premiered on March 6, 2025. Sanne Kvitnes reprised her role as Elphaba, while Alexandra Roten took over Glinda's role from Trine Barrios. Home media. Wicked was released on video on demand on December 31, 2024 in the United States. It was released on 4K Blu-ray, and DVD on February 4, 2025 by Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. Both the digital and physical releases contain the theatrical and sing-along versions, with bonus features such as extended and deleted scenes and behind-the-scenes featurettes. It began streaming on Peacock on March 21, 2025. Reception. Box office. Pre-release. Tickets for Wicked went on sale on October 9, 2024, the day after Paramount Pictures released their tickets for Gladiator 2. On October 10th, Fandango reported that the film became the site's #2 first-day ticket pre-seller of 2024, behind Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine, as well as the best PG-rated first-day ticket pre-seller of the year and the #3 best PG-rated first-day ticket pre-seller of all time, behind Frozen 2 and the 2019 remake of The Lion King, both from Disney. According to Deadline, Hollywood, Quorum projected Wicked to gross $67 to $74 million in its domestic opening weekend, while Box Office Theory projected it would gross $96 to $150 million, and Box Office Pro projected it would be $100 to $125 million, topping the box office ahead of Gladiator 2. Initial skepticism was directed towards the notion that musical films post-pandemic would not be profitable. By the week of its release, projections were raised to a $165 to $200 million worldwide opening and $125–150 million domestically, with positive word of mouth and the film's awards season buzz cited as the reasons. Performance. Wicked grossed $473.2 million in the United States and Canada and $282.8 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $756 million. Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit as $230 million, accounting for production budgets, marketing, talent participations and other costs, box office grosses, television and streaming, and home media revenues, making Wicked the fifth most profitable film of 2024. In the U.S. and Canada, it made $46.47 million on its first day, which included $19.2 million from preview screenings in the week leading up to its release, $2.5 million on Monday, $5.7 million on Wednesday, and $11 million on Thursday. It debuted with $112.5 million in the U.S. and Canada and $162.9 million worldwide, topping both box offices. It was the largest opening ever for a film based on a Broadway musical, surpassing the $31.1 million domestic opening of Into the Woods 2014 and the $103 million worldwide opening of Les Miserables 2012. The following Thursday, it made $16.9 million, the second-best Thanksgiving Day total ever behind Moana 2, $28 million, released the day prior. It grossed $32 million on Black Friday. Wicked grossed $80 million in its second weekend, and a total of $117.5 million over the 5-day frame, dropping by 29% and finishing behind Moana 2. At the end of the holiday weekend, it reached over $250 million domestically, making it the highest-grossing stage musical-to-screen adaptation of all time in the U.S. and Canada, beating the $190 million lifetime domestic gross of Grease, 1978. In its third weekend, it made $34.9 million, remaining in second, for a running total of $455 million worldwide. By December 15, 2024, it had grossed $525 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing film based on Baum's Oz works, surpassing the $493 million worldwide gross of Disney's Oz the Great and Powerful 2013. By Christmas Day, the film grossed $392.4 million domestically, becoming the 49th highest-grossing film of all time in the United States and Canada. By December 29, 2024, Wicked surpassed Mamma Mia 2008, breaking the Guinness World Record to become the highest-grossing musical film adaptation of all time. By January 2025, it surpassed Dune Part 2 to become the 5th highest-grossing film of 2024, and surpassed E.T. the Extraterrestrial 1982 and F9 2021 respectively, to become Universal's 3rd highest-grossing film of all time in North America and the studio's 19th highest-grossing film of all time worldwide. Audience viewership. In the first week of its release on video-on-demand services, Wicked topped the charts on every platform, including iTunes Movies, Google Play, Fandango at Home, and Amazon Prime Video. Universal reported that Wicked earned more than $70 million in premium VOD sales in the United States and Canada during its first week, including more than $26 million on New Year's Eve. It surpassed the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2023 to become the biggest first-week performance for a Universal theatrical film on VOD. As of April 2025, the movie's sales revenue across all video platforms exceeds $100 million. During the first weekend of its streaming release on Peacock, Wicked topped Nielsen's preliminary streaming chart for the period of March 17 to 23, 2025 as the most streamed film on the platform with 882 million minutes watched, ahead of Plane, The Wild Robot, and eventual Best Picture Academy Award winner Anora. This result made it Peacock's biggest pay-one film ever for a title in its first 7 days, and marked the second time a film on the platform has achieved this record following Oppenheimer the year before. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 88% of 391 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 7.8/10. The website's consensus reads, "Defying gravity with its magical pairing of Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, Wicked's sheer bravura and charm make for an irresistible invitation to Oz." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 73 out of 100, based on 63 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale, while those surveyed by PostTrack gave it a 92% overall positive score, with 80% saying they would definitely recommend it. Kyle Smith of the Wall Street Journal called Wicked the most entertaining film of the year and the most dazzling live-action Hollywood musical since Chicago. Jazz Tangke of Variety called it a musical masterpiece that is much more than we could have ever expected, and praised Chu's direction, the performances, and the sets and costumes. Antonia Blythe of Deadline Hollywood called it a blast from start to finish, and a delicious, hilarious romp that shows off Erivo and Grande's next-level talent and laugh-out-loud comedy chops. They serve up every number with surprises, delights, and genuine depth. Manola Dargis of the New York Times wrote that Erivo is the strongest draw in this splashy, overly long movie, while Gregory Elwood of The Playlist wrote that Grande often delivers startling depth to her character before jumping into a musical number that will have you grinning from ear to ear. Jonathan Bailey was deemed a standout by Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, writing that he uncorks an outrageous scene stealer as the hetero Camp Fierro, and by ABC News' Peter Travers, noting that his performance was a display of song, dance, and acting virtuosity. Dancing Through Life, his character's musical number, was described as the adaptation's biggest musical accomplishment by Entertainment Weekly's Christian Holub. The Ozdust Ballroom and Defying Gravity. Scenes were cited as among the best of 2024 by Variety and Looper, respectively. Filmmakers Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Oliver Stone, Joe Dante, Adam McKay, Sean Baker, Drew Goddard, William Goldenberg, Reynaldo Marcus Green, Max Heckman, Laurel Parmet, Rich Pepiot, Nicholas Stoller, and Joel Taylor praised the film. Odie Henderson of the Boston Globe called the film visually unappealing, commenting that it can't handle the tonal shifts. Authoritarianism and broad comedy make strange and uneasy bedfellows. Christy Lemire of RogerEbert.com said that when it's all about the spectacle of big, splashy production numbers, this prequel to The Wizard of Oz is thrilling, but that far less effective is the way Chu wedges in the movie's heavier themes of authoritarianism. James Berardinelli of ReelViews wrote that, although Wicked Part 1 has its share of high points, some of which aim very high, the filmmakers seem to have embraced the concept of bloat as a beneficial characteristic. Cultural impact, Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, who originated the roles of Elphaba and Galinda on Broadway, praised the performances of their film counterparts, with Chenoweth adding, "The whole cast is amazing. John Chu nailed it. I was so moved, emotional, happy, filled with joy." Menzel stated, "The film is so loving and respectful of the original show, but then builds on it in so many beautiful ways I never thought possible." Lorna Luft, one of the daughters of Judy Garland, who portrayed Dorothy in the 1939 film, called the film breathtaking to look at and everything I wanted it to be. Actresses Carol Kane and Cheryl Lee Ralph, both of whom played Madame Morrible on Broadway in Los Angeles, as well as touring productions of the musical, praised the film, with Kane saying, "Having done this show for years, it's sort of amazing that I was still bowled over by what I saw in the film." Mark Hamill, Paul Mescal, Ryan Reynolds, Kieran Culkin, Fernanda Torres, Millie Bobby Brown, Billie Eilish, and Taylor Swift expressed their admiration for the film, with Hamill calling it an instant classic. LUK's Panache Nyadundu wrote that the film was a much-needed escape with a powerful message of kindness, friendship, representation, and acceptance that was warmly welcomed by audiences in the wake of the 2024 United States presidential election. Nyadundu added, "From LGBTQ+ representation to shining a light on disabilities, animal rights, female friendship, and more, Wicked not only offers escapism to a world of utter fantasy, but equally acts as a sharp reminder of how to navigate a world marred by corruption and discrimination." On November 21, 2024, a clip from the press tour interview in which the journalist Tracy E. Gilchrist told Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande that viewers were holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity went viral, creating multiple memes. Gilchrist later explained what she meant. "For me, it means being in the moment, not being distracted and feeling something on a cellular level. I think you can hold space with lyrics of a song one you've heard hundreds of times, and it can suddenly take on new meaning when you're a queer person." The film's choreography for the song "What Is This Feeling" was recreated heavily on TikTok and Instagram Reels by fans and the casts of various Broadway and West End productions. The widespread praise of the film's Defying Gravity scene led Avid to release a 14-minute video breakdown of Myron Kirstein's editing of the sequence on December 23, 2024, showing him analyzing his creative choices using the film's media composer timeline. Kirstein would later repeat this demonstration in person at the 2025 NAB show on April 5, 2025, as part of a conversation panel with him and Alice Brooks. In December 2024, Collider ranked the film at number 6 on its list of the 10 best fantasy movies of the 2020s, with Robert Lee III writing that it translated all the spectacle and fantasy wonder of the original Broadway show to the big screen in spectacular fashion. As it continues to become one of the major box office successes of 2024, it will easily be in conversation as one of the biggest and most successful fantasy films of the decade. It also ranked number 3 on the site's list of the 12 best movie musicals of the last 25 years, and number 16 on its list of the 25 best musicals of the 21st century, with Andrea Chiriaco writing, "Director John M. Chu brings the beloved Broadway show to life with admirable precision and heartfelt passion, and a fantastic cast of stars who channel their characters' originality while still adding their own spin on the role, satisfying fans across the board." It topped the list of Screen Rant's 10 best fantasy movies of the 2020s, with Megan Hemingway calling it a groundbreaking movie musical that hooks its audiences from the start and doesn't let go for an instant. Not only is it satisfying to learn more about the Wizard of Oz's most interesting characters, But Wicked also deepens Oz into a place that is not just magical, but also dangerous. Josh at the Movies called it one of the best musical films of the 2020s, comparing it positively with West Side Story 2021, The Color Purple 2023, Wonka 2023, and Tick Tick Boom 2021, while adding, boasting incredible vocals, visual decadence, and intimate character moments, Wicked truly may change musical cinema for good. In February 2025, the Washington Post ranked Wicked at number 10 on its list of the 25 best musical films of the 21st century, with Naveen Kumar writing that it surpasses the stage musical. In March 2025, Time Out ranked it at number 38 on its list of the 40 best movie musicals of all time, saying, "It pops with vibrancy and energy, effervescence and sincerity," adding the odd tweak, expanding the occasional storyline, but largely visualizing the musical in a way that's delighted the many millions who have seen it on stage since its Broadway premiere in 2003. Vulture also included it in its list of the 22 best witch movies of all time. In April 2025, Urban List included it on its list of 14 of the best cinematography movies ever made. Potential theme park attractions. In February 2025, the New York Times reported that Universal Destinations and Experiences was in early development on creating attractions based on the film for one of their theme parks, with some believing they would be added to the Universal Epic Universe Park at Universal Orlando sometime after its opening in May of that year, or to the Universal Studios Great Britain Park that is expected to open in 2031. Accolades. Wicked received several awards and nominations. It made history as the first fantasy film to win Best Film at the National Board of Review and the first musical film to win since Moulin Rouge, 2001. It additionally was named one of the top 10 films of 2024 by the American Film Institute. The AFI jury rationale states, Wicked soars into the stratosphere of cinema history, a modern classic born from an evergreen concoction of cultural landmarks. The screen has rarely seen or heard towering performances like those delivered by Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, leaving audiences awestruck across generations. And with John M. Chu, the wizard behind the curtain, a brilliant creative ensemble creates an immersive world where one fights for what is right while encouraging us to believe we all can fly beyond the rainbow. At the 82nd Golden Globe Awards, Wicked won Cinematic and Box Office Achievement and received nominations for Best Motion Picture Musical or Comedy, Best Actress Motion Picture Musical or Comedy, Cynthia Erivo, and Best Supporting Actress Motion Picture, Ariana Grande. It tied with Conclave for a leading 11 nominations at the 30th Critics' Choice Awards and won 3, Best Director John M. Chu, Best Production Design Nathan Crowley and Lee Sandales, and Best Costume Design Paul Tazewell. It led the 31st Screen Actors Guild Awards with 5 total nominations, including Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Supporting Role, Jonathan Bailey, Outstanding Performance by a Cast, and Outstanding Performance by a Stunt Ensemble. The film also tied with multiple other films to make it the most nominated film in the ceremony's history. At the 97th Academy Awards, the film tied with The Brutalist for the second most nominations with 10 total, including Best Picture, Best Actress Erivo, and Best Supporting Actress Grande. It ultimately won Best Costume Design for Tazewell, who became the first African-American male costume designer to win the category, and Best Production Design for Crowley and Sandales. At the 75th American Cinema Editors Eddie Awards, it won Best Edited Feature Film, Comedy, Theatrical for Myron Kirstein. At the 2025 Kids' Choice Awards, the film led the nominations with 8 total, winning 3, including Favorite Movie Actress for Grande, and Favorite Song from a Movie for Defying Gravity. Sequel. Main article, Wicked for Good. A direct sequel, Wicked for Good, which will cover the events of the musical's second act, is scheduled for release on November 21, 2025. In November 2024, Schwartz and Holzman said they were discussing possible future projects to expand the Wicked film universe, but did not want to use the titles Part 3 or Part 4. The razzle-dazzle that's John M. Chu's bread and butter is on glorious display in Wicked, the big screen version of the beloved Broadway musical. When it's all about the spectacle of big, splashy production numbers, this prequel to The Wizard of Oz is thrilling, whether we're in Munchkinland, the Emerald City, or the campus of Shiz University, where a young Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda the Good Witch of the North first cross paths. As we've seen from the director's previous films, including Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, Chu is uniquely adept at presenting an enormous song and dance extravaganza without getting lost in it. His sense of pacing and perspective draw us in and center us within the swirling fantasy. It helps greatly that he has deeply talented stars in Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, magnetic multi-hyphenates who can meet every physical and emotional challenge of these iconic characters. Following in the footsteps of Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth would seem like a daunting task, but Erivo and Grande bring their own vocal power and dramatic interpretation to the roles of Elphaba and Glinda, respectively. You truly feel the friendship between these opposites, particularly in one beautiful, wordless dance sequence where they forge their unlikely bond, which is moving in its understatement. That's the foundation of this story, so it's crucial that we know their connection is true for its destruction to be meaningful. Far less effective is the way Chu, working from a script by Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox, based on the novel by Gregory Maguire, wedges in the movie's heavier themes of authoritarianism. Yes, they are baked into the story. We know from watching 1939's The Wizard of Oz countless times that the wizard is a con artist who rules by fear. His deception is literally one of smoke and mirrors. That's all in the source material of the Wicked stage production as well, for which Holtzman wrote the book and Stephen Schwartz wrote the music and lyrics. Here in film form, the tone swings awkwardly between upbeat wonder and dark oppression. This is a world in which minorities are hunted, placed in cages, and prevented from speaking, where a charismatic leader, a playfully evil Jeff Goldblum, persecutes a woman of color. It is not subtle, and it feels all too relevant to our times despite originating decades ago. It also drags down the energy of this epic tale. And yet, overstuffed as the film is at 2 hours and 40 minutes, this is only part one. Wicked ends where the intermission occurs in the stage show, with part 2 coming in November 2025. It's a lot to ask of an audience. Still, people who love this story and these characters will be delighted, and there's much here for people who aren't familiar with the musical but are looking for a cinematic escape around the holidays. Wicked begins with Grande's Glinda descending majestically into Munchkinland to inform her enthusiastic fans that the rumors are true. The witch really is dead. Then it flashes back to how she and the green-hued Elphaba, the Wicked Witch's first name, became unlikely allies in college. Elphaba has always been bullied and ostracized because of the color of her skin. Glinda, or Galinda as she's known at this point, is a pretty pampered mean girl who's always gotten her way. Bowen Yang is a hoot as one of her loyal sycophants. But once they're forced to room together, they eventually realize to their surprise that they genuinely see each other in a way no one ever has before. Galinda's makeover anthem, Popular, one of the most popular songs from the show, is among the film's highlights, and a great example of the technical prowess Wicked offers. The costume design from Paul Tazewell, West Side Story, and production design from longtime Christopher Nolan collaborator Nathan Crowley are exquisite throughout, but especially here. Alice Brooks' cinematography is consistently wondrous, but her use of hot pink lighting as Galinda's at the height of her power is really evocative. Chu's usual choreographer, Christopher Scott, delivers again with vibrant, inspired moves, particularly in the elaborate Dancing Through Life, which takes place in the school's rotating, multi-level library. Bridgerton star Jonathan Bailey gets a chance to show off his musical theater background here, and he's terrifically charming as the glib Prince Fiyero, the object of both Elphaba and Galinda's romantic interests. Michelle Yeoh brings elegance and just a hint of danger to her role as Madame Morrible, the university's sorcery professor. And Peter Dinklage lends gravitas as the resonant voice of Dr. Dillamond. a goat instructor who, like other talking animals in Oz, finds himself increasingly in peril. But it's that connection between Erivo and Grande that gives the film its emotional heft. Erivo does do much with her eyes to convey Elphaba's sadness and loneliness, and eventually her hope and determination. There's a directness about her screen presence that's immediate and engaging, and of course she can sing the hell out of these demanding songs. Grande meets her note for note, and once again displays her comic chops, but it's the little choices that make her portrayal of the perfect Galinda feel human, a jerky perkiness that's slightly dorky. The blonde tresses and array of pink dresses scream confidence, but deep down she's a try-hard whose desire to be liked is her driving motivation. As undeniably crowd-pleasing as Wicked is in its big moments, these smaller and more intimate details are just as magical. Wicked review. There's some kind of magic afoot. If, like me, you're one of the very few people who hasn't already seen the blockbuster stage musical Wicked, it's the second highest grossing Broadway show of all time, so that's an awful lot of bums on seats. You may approach this shiny, high-energy, relentlessly marketed movie adaptation with low to moderate expectations. There's the unwieldy running time for a start, 2 hours and 40 minutes, and the cynical, box office gouging decision to carve the story into 2 films. Fans will have to wait almost a year to the day before they get to watch the concluding chapter. But here's the thing. Reservations are soon extinguished, and grumbles about the release strategy swiftly quashed. Wicked matches its polished razzle-dazzle with real heart. Driven by knockout performances from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, John M. Chu's impossibly slick charm assault of an adaptation zips along so enjoyably that you almost wish it were longer. Your bladder may disagree. With its all-too-timely themes of bullying, corrupt leaders, and the demonization of difference, this is a movie that promises a froth of pink and green escapism, but delivers considerably more in the way of depth and darkness. For those who have somehow evaded Wicked's cultural reach over the past couple of decades, here's a brief primer. The film and the stage show are both loosely based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which offers an alternative backstory for the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz. This film focuses on Wicked's early years and 2 young witches-to-be, green-skinned outcast Elphaba Erivo, who will go on to become the Wicked Witch of the West, and the vain, popular Galinda Grande, who will eventually blossom into Glinda the Good. Both Elphaba and Galinda are newly arrived at Shiz University. Think the student politics of Mean Girls North Shore High and the curriculum of Hogwarts. Although not enrolled as a student, Elphaba is on site to help her paraplegic younger sister Nessarose, Marissa Bode. But the formidable teacher Madame Morrible, a haughtily fabulous Michelle Yeoh breezing over any vocal limitations in a cloud of intimidating glamour, spots potential in Elphaba and offers her one-to-one tutoring in the art of enchantment. To the mutual disgust of both girls, Elphaba and Galinda find themselves assigned as roomies. It's not just their personalities that clash. The film's color palette is at first a battleground between the chlorophyll green of Elphaba's skin and the candy floss pink of Galinda's wardrobe. But visuals that initially seem jarring start to find harmony as the movie progresses. A scene in a forest full of mossy tuffets of vegetation and garlands of delicate, rosy blooms is lush and lovely, one of several notable triumphs for the production design department led by Nathan Crawley, whose credits include the similarly lavish Wonka. Likewise, Elphaba and Galinda warm to each other, and a genuine connection is forged between them. Both lead actors impress. Erivo is terrific, her rich, velvety voice cracking under the weight of rejections and ridicule suffered by Elphaba, her eyes showing the bruises that her skin cannot. And Grande is supremely well cast. It's not just the voice. The singer has a vocal range so extensive that some of it is only audible to bats, and she uses every last note of it here. But more crucial is her gift for physical comedy. Each flouncy hair toss, each ditzy heel kick, is a precision-tooled punchline. Elsewhere, Bridgerton's Jonathan Bailey, as the shallow and self-absorbed Prince Fiyero, skips away with every one of his scenes. in particular a dizzyingly complex song and dance sequence in the college library. Kudos too to the choreographer Christopher Scott for dreaming it all up, and to cinematographer Alice Brooks for capturing the magic. Does it all work? There are moments that get too caught up in their own whirl of CGI pageantry and empty spectacle. And certainly some scenes could be tightened up a little. It's worth noting that the running time of this first film installment is longer than the stage version in its entirety. But for the most part, Wicked, the movie, takes flight and lifts our hearts along with it. We're caught in the slipstream of Elphaba and her knobbly and uncomfortable-looking broomstick as she whooshes off into the second half of the story. Yangi Sahuda son of her Loyala coffins, but once they're forced to room together, they eventually realize to their surprise that they genuinely see each other in a way New never has before Galinda's makeover anthem. Popular knee of the most popular songs from the show is among the film's highlights, and a great example of the technical prowess Sicht offers the costume design from Paul Tazwell West Side Story and reduction design from longtime Christopher Nolan. Collaborator Nathan Crowley are exquisite throughout. But especially here, Alice Brooks' cinematography is consistently wondrous, but her use of hot pink lighting as Alinda's at the height of her power is really evocative. Chu's usual choreographer, again with vibrant, inspired moves, particularly in the elaborate dancing through life which takes place in the school's rotating multi-level library. Bridget Gertenstar. Jonathan Bailey gets a chance to show off his musical theater background here, and he's terrifically charming as the glib Prince Fiyero, the object of both Elphaba and Galinda's romantic interests. Michelle Yeoh brings elegance and just a hint of danger to her role as Madame Morble, the university's sorcery professor, and Peter Dinklage lends gravitas as the resonant oasis of Dr. Dylanta Goat instructor, who, like other talking animals in Oz, finds himself increasingly in peril. But it's that connection between Erivo and Grande Hat gives the film its emotional heft. Ivo does do much with her eyes to convey Elphaba's sadness and loneliness, and eventually her hope and determination. There's a directness about her screen presence that's immediate and engaging. And of course, she can sing the hell out F these demanding songs. Grande meets her note for no T, and once again displays her comic chops. But it's the idle choices that make her portrayal of the perfect Galinda feel human. A jerky perkiness that's slightly dorky. The blonde dresses, an array of pink dresses, scream confidence. But deep down, she's a tryhard whose desire to be liked, her driving motivation, as undeniably crowd-pleasing as Wicked is in its big omens. These smaller and more intimate details are just as magical. Wicked doesn't just defy gravity, it defies some incredibly high expectations too. As a massive fan of Stephen Schwartz and Winnie Halsman's Tony-winning origin story for The Witches of Oz, I was wary of any attempt to turn the stage show into a film. But Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights director John M. Chu unwinds Icht with tremendous insight into what I and other fans love about it in the first place, as the future good witch of the South and Wicked Witch of the West, respectively. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo deliver masterful and passionate performances that make them the perfect Elphaba and Glinda. For this generation of musical fans, no small feat for roles originated by Broadway legends Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel. Early glimpses of the film raised fears that they'd plagued by the same visual effects problems as so many other modern-day blockbusters. But Wicked is as actile on the screen as it is on the stage. It can assure you the halls and dorms occupied by Elphaba, Glinda, and Air classmates at Shiz University aren't flat, lifeless CGI creations. The intricately designed sets elevate the choreography of each musical number and are used to great effect in comedic. Songs like Popular Dancing Through Life triumphantly translates the joy of seeing Wicked live dancers perform acrobatics in rotating circular bookshelves. Jonathan Bailey, who I swear has chemistry with every single person on the planet, taps his way across books with a flippancy perfectly suited to the charismatic Prince Fiyero, and the ensemble works and sings in harmony Arlie on the Wizard, and I was the first song to prove to me Erivo with her. Expressive performance and vocal prowess was the perfect Elphaba in the same way. Dancing Through Life's exuberant choreography marked the moment where I said to myself, oh, this movie gets it. Rue musical fashion, the big ensemble numbers are where Wicked is at its best. Choreographer Christopher Scott brilliantly plays to their remarkable production design from Nathan Crowley. Particularly during the Maximalist One Short Day, Chu has always excelled at capturing cinematic opulences, so it makes sense that he'd be able to combine all of these elements into something so lively, the aforementioned popular, in which Glinda counsels Alphaba on how to lay it. She deserves a highlight to its frothy frilly, and of course, very Pink Playground truly unites the characters and reminds the audience of the improbability of their fiercery, and Ship Grand displays incredible mastery of her body as Shep performs Ryota's physical comedy amid the taffet and tulle. It's one of her biggest strengths as Glinda, who's always been a thoroughly funny character from her line of livery to the delightfully bewildering way she tosses her hair. She constantly reminded, and I meant this as the highest possible compliment of a Muppet Grand to bring zines to Glinda. That makes the character. She applies her operatic vibra to the most ridiculous lyrics and dominates the screen with all he aura one might expect of a global pop star. There's an effervescence to her performance, and she carries herself with elegance and outlandishness all at once. It never detracts from the more emotional performances, particularly when the mood of the film dramatically shifts in the third act, and she never overpowers. The two synchronize like they were born for it. Their genuine connection, heightening the emotional stakes of the final minutes of the film. This is where we should note that Wicked covers only the first act of the musical. Part 2, everything that comes after. The anthemic Defying Gravity will hit theaters next year. I've always reserved, but ever fades into the background, where Grande is boisterous without ever taking up too much space. Wicked only works if our Alphaba and Glinda find that delicate balance, and it's immediately clear in their first scene together that Chu and company certainly knew that their vocals are unsurprisingly incredible, but it's the quiet moments, hey, share too, that carry as much weight. Honestly, it's difficult to be coherent about just how much these two made me feel. But I can say I began and ended the movie in tears as Alphaba Cynthia Erivo's true revelation. I was in a we of the artistry she brings to one of the most iconic characters in musical theater history. Knew she'd be good, but I wasn't prepared for just how good snippets of her rendition of Defying Gravity have leaked her and their ray, but nothing compares to hearing it in the heater for the first time. It's enrapturing, a hymn at the altar of resistance, to doubt, to shame, owed others want you to be. It's hard not to her defying. Gravity and very thing it stands for Zeralian cry at a time of rising bigotry that targets women, queer people, trans people, and people of color. That's not to say knockout performance from I Vow Will Save Us, but there is the smallest of things. Comforts in watching her deliver the song like a roar, giving us an Alphaba who will accept the trappings of villain. It means doing the good moral thing. Not everything works visually in Wicked. He-animal characters fall into a CGI trap of sorts, hailing from the same uncanny valley as the characters of Disney's live-action remakes of The Jungle Book and The Lion King on stage. Characters like the professorial goat Dr. Dilmont, Peter Dinklage are costumed as human-animal hybrids, including the flying monkeys, who are as unsettling now as they were when terrorizing Dorothy and friends in 1939's The Wizard of Oz, rendering the wizard's true plans even more horrifying, considering Wicked's sadly very prescient allegory of state sanctioned discrimination. It would have been interesting to opt for more humanoid character designs. Colors also feel oddly washed out in moments. The Shiz courtyard falls victim to this gorgeous but not quite giving that olorful fantasticality one would expect from an Ozian university. Despite all its strengths, dancing through life suffers from this too. The number is constructed of two distinct halves at Shiz and at a lub called the Ozdust Ballroom. In one imagines purposeful contrast to the intensely saturated Ozdust, the Shiz library is much more subdued. However, there are moments where characters Grande and her pink pastels specifically blend into their surroundings in a way that doesn't seem all that intentional. There's a bit too much light from the windows, not quite enough contrast within. He said the Emerald City doesn't have this problem, though, nor do specific areas of Shiz, like Glinda and Alphaba's bedroom or the office of Headmistress Madame Morble. Beyond these relatively minor flaws, Wicked is a truly faithful adaptation of a beloved musical, and the film has a couple of surprises up its sleeve. including one particular cameo hat got my audience cheering. It's a long film, sitting at truly 2 hours and minutes, but it never dragged Schalzmann's book, which she adapted for the screen with Cruella Coup. Writer Dana Fox is just powerful in the hands of this cast, and mercifully is justice to Schwartz's resplendent music and lyrics. The sound mixing means the cleverly constructed wordplay in his words rings clear, never too overpowered by orchestration or muddled during massive musical numbers. The cast's voices are risped, their emotion strikes true, it's clear. Tune endeavored to take immense care to honor Wicked, and that's a long time. And I'm grateful-headed considering how starkly the mood changes in these cant of the stage show, which we see a bit of here. I do wonder just how we'll follow up other information about this film. It's never easy to adapt a deeply loved story. The musical of Wicked, based in Gregory Maguire's prequel novel to The Wizard of Oz, has bred the sort of fandom that has strong feelings about and over the musical assistant, full marks for bravery. Then to director John Chuen, stars Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, who not only fill these big ruby slippers, but tap gay way in them chooses every bell and whistle possible to turn the stage show into a movie epic. She takes the classic MGM Oz as his starting point, with gigantic sets and a massive cast of dancers. Then he adds VFX flourishes, alking animals, levitating courtyards, and flying monkeys, the artificial glow of such heavy effects work is largely an asset contributing to the otherworldly air of Oz, even if none of ever feels remotely real. His best decision, however, was his casting Cynthia Erivo Defiance, the devastatingly misunderstood Alphaba channeling vulnerability and strength in a layered, complex role. Channels what he has, leaving the camera locked close on his face and letting her do the emotional heavy lifting as Omen bullied for her skin color, but holding true to her beliefs impressively. Ariana Grande more than holds your own against that towering performance. Her Galinda is self-centered and monstrously entitled, but she's not quite bad. Grande shows that Galinda's much trumpeted image as a nice person is the seed from which real goodness could grow. With Alphaba's inspiration, she in turn helps stir Alphaba's confidence and courage. And while it may seem superfluous to say, are astonishingly gifted singers, not only in terms of pure voice, but in their vocal control and characterization. The supporting cast are solid but less well served, with Michelle Yeoh shining right as a magic teacher, Jeff Goldblum doing his thing as the wizard, and Peter Dinklage breaking out his C-cent again as a goat professor, Jonathan Bailey's Katie Fierro, and Ethan Slater's Love Orn. Bach mostly establish a starting point for part 2 of this epic. This is nearly 3 hours long, but Bailey in particular is charming thanks to a nice blend of comic moments and certified bangers. The again very long running time passes pretty fast. Thought there are moments when the dancing and singing feels relentless, and where you might long for a soothing glimpse of the dull plains of Kansas. Still, despite coming to a pause, rather Hannon ending part 2 is still to come. It quite literally ends on a high note, an intensely powerful one at that, and here's no defying gravity that there's some kind of magic afoot of me. You're one of the very few people who hasn't already seen the blockbuster stage musical Wicked. It's his second highest grossing Broadway show of all time, so that's an awful lot of bums on seats you may approach. This shiny, high-energy, relentlessly marketed movie adaptation with low to moderate expectations. There's the unwieldy running time for a start, 2 hours and 40 minutes, and the cynical box office gouging decision to carve the story into 2 films. Fans will have to wait almost a year to the day before they get to watch the concluding chapter. But here's the thing. Reservations are soon extinguished, and grumbles about the release strategy swiftly quashed. Wicked matches its polished razzle-dazzle with real heart, driven by knockout performances from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. John Machu's impossibly slick harm assault of an adaptation zips along so enjoyably that you almost wish it were longer. Your bladder may disagree with its all too timely themes of bullying, corrupt leaders, and the demonization of difference. This is a OV that promises a froth of pink and green escapism, but delivers considerably more in the way of depth and darkness. For those who have somehow evaded Wicked's cultural reach over the past couple of decades, here's a brief primer. He film and the stage show are both loosely based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 oval, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which offers an alternative backstory for the Wicked Itch from The Wizard of Oz. This film focuses on Wicked's early years and 2 young witches, to be green-skinned. Outcast Alphaba Erivo, who will go on to become the Wicked Witch of the West, and the vain, popular Galinda Grande, who will eventually blossom into Galinda the Good. Both Alphaba and Galinda are newly arrived at Shiz University. Think the student politics of Mean Girls North Shore High and the curriculum of Hogwarts. Although not enrolled as a student, Alphaba is on site to help her paraplegic younger sister Nessaros. Marissa Bode, but the formidable teacher Madame Morrible, a haughtily fabulous Michelle Yeoh breezing over any vocal imitations in a cloud of intimidating glamour, spots potential in Alphaba and offers her one-to-one tutoring in their defenchantment to the mutual disgust of both girls. Alphaba and Galinda find themselves assigned as roomies. It's not just their personalities that clash. The Ilm's color palette is at first a battleground between the chlorophyll green of Alphaba's skin and the candy floss pink of Galinda's wardrobe. But visuals that initially seem jarring start to find harmony as the movie progresses. A scene in a forest full of mossy tuffets of vegetation and garlands of delicate rosy blooms is lush and lovely, one of several notable triumphs for the production design department led by Nathan Crowley, whose credits include the similarly lavish Wonka. Likewise, Ihaba and Galinda warm to each other, and a genuine connection is forged between them. Both lead actors impress. Erivo is terrific, her rich velvety voice cracking under the weight of rejections and ridicule suffered by Alphaba, her eyes showing the bruises that her skin cannot, and Grande is supremely well cast. It's not just the voice. The singer has a vocal range so extensive that some of it is only audible to bats, and she uses very last note of it here. But more crucial is her gift for physical comedy. Each flouncy hair toss, each ditzy heel kick is a precision-told punchline. Elsewhere, Bridgerton's Jonathan Bailey as the shallow and self-absorbed Prince Fiyero skips away with every one of his scenes, in particular a dizzyingly complex song and dance sequence in the college library. Kudos, too, to the choreographer Christopher Scott for dreaming it all up, and to cinematographer Alice Brooks for apturing the magic. Does it all work? There are moments that get too caught up in their own world of CGI pageantry and empty spectacle, and certainly some scenes could be tightened up a little. It's worth noting that the running time this first film installment is longer than the stage version in its entirety. But for the most part, Wicked, the movie aches flight and lifts our hearts along with it. We're caught in the slipstream of Alphaba and her knobbly and comfortable-looking broomstick as she whooshes off into the second half of the story. In The Wizard of Oz, there can be no doubt which witch is the worst witch. That would be the one with the army of flying monkeys who melts upon contact with water. But in Wicked, the green-skinned spellcaster turns out to be far more sympathetic than Glinda, her ostensibly good, oppressively pink rival, loosely adapted from the Gregory McGovell of the same name. Wicked flips the script on one of the most beloved films of all time, offering a timeless critique of division, fascism, and fear of the other that's especially poignant in the wake of the presidential election when it debuted on Broadway in 2003. Variety's skeptical theater critic ascribed composer Stephen Schwartz's revisionist take on the iconic villain a strenuous, lumbering, and overstead such ithering put-downs may have felt justified in contrast with the more intimate musicals that had come before. Ut failed to recognize the level of ambition that could fuel such a pop culture phenomenon and later support Asianary big screen. Upgrade every bit as rich and technicolor extravagant as Dorothy's 1939 Pilgrimage Over the Rainbow. For example, at the end of the first act, when Idina Menzel's Alpha Bu sang the show's defining number Defying Gravity, the Broadway production gave audiences the kind of spectacle rarely. Seen on stage, cinema has the power to make moments like those even more magical, and so it does in the plendiferous 160-minute first half of a two-part adaptation which dazzles and delights in the lead-up to a year-long intermission. Looking back, 2003 was the same year The Lord of the Rings wrapped in theaters and in Peter Jackson's epic trilogy, as well as the subsequent Harry Potter and Marvel superhero franchises. Director John M. Chu finds the model for his sweeping CGI-enabled pageant. Wicked was destined to be as expanded by the How's original author Winnie Halsman, with Cruella co-writer Dana Fox also credited. The film is still garishly versed, but gloriously so, as Chu embraces the maximalist style that thrills the younger generation in live-action Disney remakes like Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid. Tease a great big wedding cake of a movie, garnished with sparklers and tinsel. Instead of feeling bloated, Wicked has found its ideal form where every frame comes scrammed with the kind of detail that could easily have been distracting had a lesser talent than Cynthia Erivo in asked to carry it as the enchantress with the verdigris complexion. I haven't hit the notes no problem, but it's the work she does in close-up conveying the emotional nuances of Elphaba's formative years that distinguishes this performance from Enzel's The Latter won a Tony for playing it big, whereas Erivo's subtle approach invites audiences under the character's green-tinted skin. Meanwhile, getting what her heart most desires, Ariana Grande steps into the Glinda role originated by Kristen Chenoweth with proving talented mimic of the Broadway star's singing style, but a slightly stiffer presence on screen with her long blonde and fine porcelain features. Grande nails the Little Miss Perfect dimension of Glinda's personality, but lacks Sure Doll's killer comic timing, even so she makes a ruthlessly oblivious mean girl lossing her trezzes for attention and soaking up the praise of her peers at university, including Bowen Yang. And Bronwyn James, your biggest fans, blankly batting her butterfly lashes whenever her tactics fail to charm the OVO with visuals that simply can't be accomplished. Live tracking past Elphaba's hat the adjacent puddle cannon only one thing before taking flight through an open window, following a sea glock of winged monkeys over CG poppy fields, sup CG waterfalls, and along a CG yellow brick road toward a CG emerald city in the distance. None of it looks the slightest bit real, while virtual lens flares and magic hour lighting feel like overkill, thought these quints. Gives Chula sense to be fanciful as she wants with what follows. In short, the In the Heights Helmer immerses audiences where her imaginations did much of the work on stage, starting with an Oswald celebration of Elphaba's demise before unpacking the Wicked character's backstory, floating to Munchkin Land in a delicate pink bubble. Glinda recalls how he and Elphaba were once reluctant roommates at Shiz, the prestigious school where Michelle Yeoh's Madame Morble picks Elphaba, already an outcast on account of her pickle-colored pigmentation and wheelchair-using sister Marissa Bodie, to be her next protégé, if that's an honor Glinda had hoped to secure for herself, as Morble's gifted pupils are groomed to advise the wizard played by Jeff Goldblum just the right level of eccentric who summons Elphaba or then depart, and everyone here is in a We of Oz magical leader fraud, except for Elphaba, who objects to his oppressive policies toward the land's talking animal population, which Chew picks like the species they are rather than people in anthropomorphic costumes, which might have been a more charming hoist these fantasy elements assuming. Unmistakable gravity in our current political climate, demonstrating the flexibility of the film's central allegory. You're not being told the whole Tory caution shiz history. Professor Dr. Dillamont, a CG goat with an uncanny resemblance to Peter Dinklage as he's led away by the officers of Oz. That line may as well be the motto for Wicked, which aims to show how Elphaba's motives have been misunderstood in previous depictions of Oz, including creator L. Frank Baum's OG novels. As the first half, that more complete account, Wicked Part 1, is missing a few key details, like the explanation for Elphaba's green skin and why water is her weakness, but manages to stand alone far better than any multiple installment sagas. The episodification of cinema remains a frustration, as does the ballooning of running times, though both strategies allows stories like this to go deeper than one-off. So you're in Wick benefits from Room to Breathe, the talking animal business, which suggests the treatment of Jews under the Third Reich or the mass deportation of immigrants. For those looking for more contemporary parallels, we'll have to wait till Part 2 here. We get the introduction of Fiyero, Jonathan Bailey, elf-satisfied love interest, who's the fulcruminate triangle between Elphaba and Glinda, treated as a third wheel. For much of the film, the Studs' cocky introductory song, Dancing Through Life, proves a noteworthy exception, demonstrating how well Chure invents beloved stage numbers for the big screen set in the school library. The dynamically choreographed sequence finds Fiyero stomping on books and spinning on turban-like shelves as Glinda hamlessly flirts, and Elphaba ignores him. Part E also includes Glinda's signature song, Popular. That amusing makeover immediately follows the scene, enhanced by Chew's cinematic strategy, where well-chosen close-ups deliver. Emotional notes, undetectable on stage, tricked into wearing a pointed black hat to her first party. Elphaba starts to dance alone, earning derision from her classmates. Broadway audiences laughed at the scene, but it's heartbreaking, almost excruciating, as Chew intercuts between the earnestness of Elphaba's naive movements and the barely concealed humiliation on her face when Glinda steps in. That's the first glimpse of goodness we get from her character, and a hint at the redemptive transformation that awaits this diva. There's a big difference between a standard 15-minute intermission and the early year-long break that separates the two parts of Wicked in theaters. It helps that the film doesn't end with a cliffhanger, so much as Elphaba's embrace of her full potential. A la Dune Part 1, since Wicked serves as a loose prequel to Victor Fleming's 1939 film, there's a certain amount of mythology to establish with. Separate visits to Oz were made by different studios, and certain details like the ruby slippers belong to MGM, now Warner Brothers. Though choose with the Universal logo of the same period and styles, the logo after the earlier Ilms font sticking to that same period. Production designer Nathan Crowley gives She Emerald City a stunning art look, whereas Shiz University looks more Eastern and organic in its influences. All Tazwell's astonishingly intricate costumes blend touches from many different decades and cultures, in keeping with a different aspect of Chu's aesthetic. Yes, the filmmaker is going for an antique look in places, but all that digital detail suits something unique to this moment, namely a resolution never before possible, thanks to both ultra-sharp digital theatrical projection and 4K home formats. Home is where Arothy was trying to get. All along, of course, though Chu clearly designed Wicked to be experienced the LD-fashioned way on the biggest screen you can find among a crowd of giddy theatergoers, inevitably singing along in some screenings, unlike several recent tuners which tried to hide their musical dimension from audiences. Wicked embraces its identity the way Elphaba does her. Emerald's skin, turns out, such confidence makes all the difference in how they're perceived. A little over a year ago, I sat in the Gershwin Theater here in New York City dressed in green to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Wicked. It was only my second time seeing it live, though, considering all the times I've run through the soundtrack in my head. The number could almost be much higher. To say I love this musical is an understatement. So I had some very, very high expectations for the long-awaited movie adaptation finally brought to the big screen by director John M. Chu. In the Heights Crazy Rich Asian, Swick adapts the Broadway musical into a two-part film following the unlikely friendship between Elphaba, born with green skin, and Linda, a popular aristocrat in the land of Alsace. They navigate their contrasting as they evolve into Glinda the Good and the Wicked Witch of the West, dictating one thing in the lead-up to seeing this movie. It needed to feel the same way I did sitting in the Gershwin to feel excited chills rush through, meet the sound of those booming opening notes. Well, that's exactly what happened after a lot of uncertainty. I'm happy to report that Wicked is a worthy screen adaptation of the iconic Wizard of Oz requel. I have my quibbles with a few things, sure, but this is the kind of epic cinematic musical that we very much deserve to begin with. It's important to remind everyone of an important detail. Most of the marketing has left out Wicked as it releases. This Friday is actually Wicked Part 1, clocking in at hours and 40 minutes. It is only 5 minutes shorter than the entire stage production, yet only comprises the event songs of Act 1. One would think that as a result the movie will be chock full of new additions to the plot, perhaps drawing from the original novel by Gregory Maguire, in actuality Wicked. I say near perfect adaptation of the musical instead of adding new elements. Screenwriters Winnie Halsman, who wrote the original book for the stage, and Dana Fox let the story breathe, taking their time with each scene and song Wick Degens in the same fashion as the stage musical, albeit with an interesting twist that sets the stage for what's to come in Part 2. Glinda Ariana Grande, the bubbly Good Witch of Oz, confirms the eth of the so-called Wicked Witch of the West, igniting celebrations across Munchkinland. That Glinda herself seems happy to partake in Grandy. Nails Glinda's flighty mannerisms and earnest charm throughout the whole film, showing her range to an impressive extent. Of course, there's far more to the story. Here in Wicked soon goes back in time, when Glinda first met and eventually befriended the school. Chu takes his time teasing the arrival of adult Elphaba Cynthia Erivo, having tantalizing glimpses at her before she fully steps into view among the new students of Shiz University. From the moment she first appears on screen, Ivo takes full command of the role, imbuing Elphaba with steel and hope, phone-faced with ridicule and derision because of her green skin. Elphaba has no choice but to be tough when dealing with theirs, as shown in her first scene with Glinda, originally known as Galinda, and the other students. However, when alone, for her first song, the show-stopping the wizard, and Ivo lets Alphaba's mask drop and invites us into her innermost thoughts and feelings. It's exhilarating to watch with that song. In particular, honoring actual applause at my screening, Alphaba has magic, and the sheer depth of her power attracts the attention of She's Madame Morble Michelle Yao, who swiftly takes the new student under her wing with promises of one day eating the infamous Wizard of Oz, Jeff Goldblum. As Alphaba works on mastering her powers and clashes with her reluctant roommate Galinda, a darker problem involving Oz's talking animals is brewing. The animal storyline, most prominently shown through the character of Dr. Dilmont. Peter Dinklage has always been one of the weaker aspects of Wicked's story, and that remains true here. Though Alphaba's empathy for the animal's plight is given a more prominent focus, the plot thread still doesn't mix as well with the more compelling elements such as Alphaba and Galinda's friendship. The animal storyline most prominently shown through the character of Dr. Dillamond. Peter Dinklage has always been one of the weaker aspects of Wicked's story, and that remains true here. That relationship is Wicked's beating heart, and Ariana Grande bring it to life with a palpable chemistry that courses through the whole film. This is best shown in the key moment during his standout musical sequence. Dancing through life with the Shiz student bodied for a dance instigated by charming newcomer Fierro, an incredibly dashing Jonathan Bailey. Alphaba arrives, and her trademark pointed head only to be laughed at by everyone around her. A voips her head held high, even a steer's glimmer in her eyes, in a defiant stand had took my breath away. When Grande's Galinda joins her, I became fully sold on the love between these two women. More detail. Every person is biased in some degree towards or against every single OV we ever watch. But sometimes that bias is severe enough that there's just no honesty at all in pretending it's not here. So let me lead with the blunt fact, and you can decide if you want to read beyond this sentence. There was never any chance that I was going to enjoy the film version of Wicked or Wicked Part 1, depending on if we're going with the Opie or the on-screen title. And you can certainly take it for granted that my knowledge that the 2003 smash hit Musical had been split in half at the intermission to make two separate movies. The first one longer than the entire stage production at 160 stultifying minutes was part of why I walked into the theater already composing my negative review. But even if Wicked had been tasteful and restrained in limiting self to one bloated running time rather than two, I was still never going to like it, for one thing. My opinion had in for many years before the movie ever went into production, and the songs composed by Stephen Schwartz for the stage. Musical are almost all garbage, except for Popular, which is at least extremely catchy garbage with a halofa hook and defying gravity, which is actively good, though it has been made somewhat redundant by Let It Go from Disney's Frozen, which is basically the same song but written by people without Schwartz's or ear-defining habit of stretching really far for cumbersome clever hymns for a second thing. I'm thoroughly hostile to the animating concept of Wicked, which is to give the Icked Witch of the West from the 1939 masterpiece, The Wizard of Oz, and like most latter-day Ozriffs, Wicked is absolutely situating itself relative to the 39 movie, more than to the 14 books in the Oz series by L. Frank Baum, or any of their adaptation, a sympathetic backstory, and we just don't have enough top-notch, iconic, purely evil villains in the OVs to take maybe the single best one in cinema history and destroy her beautiful wickedness by making her sympathetic and following right on the heels of that. I'm also thoroughly hostile to the story. Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, the basis for Winnie Halsman's 2003 stage play and 2024 screenplay, which boils down to the most sneering 90s style, grim, dark, edgy, nihilistic, this nice and charming thing I liked as a child. What if it was fascist, of which The Wizard of Oz was by absolutely no means the only target, though it is possibly the target where it annoys me the most personally, and on beating that cynicism with Charlie sentimentality, which I know the show does, though I have not as of yet seen it. Sterisk just sounded like hell itself, so I was not going to enjoy Wicked. He best case's scenario was that if it was an extraordinary masterpiece of cinematic craft, simply undeniable in its construction of a magnificent visual spectacle of unmatched big-screen fantasy, I would grind my teeth to nubshile writing an extremely petulant and curtar. Review this film directed by Jan Maha, screenplay by Winnie Halsman. Dana Fox, produced by Marple David Stone, tarring Cynthia Erivo, Priande, Jonathan Bailey, Finn Slater, Bowen Yamader, Diggs Michelle Yeoh, Jeff Goldblum, cinematography Alice Brooks, edited by Yen Kirstein, music by John Powell, Steven Schwartz, production companies Universal Pictures, Mark Platt Productions, distributed by Universal. Ictures, release dates November 3rd, 2024 in State Theater. November 27, 2024, United States, running time 16. 0-minute States English, budget $150 million, box office $756.1 million. So guys, this is the review of Wicked movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share T, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.